Hello, beautiful moms and entrepreneurs. My name is Charisse Walker, and I'm your host of the Unbreakable Mompreneurs podcast. This is a place where we come together to learn, grow, and inspire. So sit back, relax, and let's get started. Hello, Unbreakable Mompreneurs. My name is Charisse Walker, your host, and today I'm here with Juana Whitmore, and she is a female entrepreneur, which I love, and teaches people about financial literacy, which I think we could all use help with. So without further ado, would you please introduce yourself to our listeners?
Hi, thank you so much for having me, Charisse. As you said, my name is Juana Whitmore. I'm an Accredited Small Business Consultant and Certified Financial Education Instructor. And I work with entrepreneurs all day long, every day. So helping them start businesses, grow businesses, and soon to be helping them manage their personal finances so they can have stronger companies.
That is fantastic. I recently was on a meeting and they were talking about how you have to check all of your KPIs or your key performance indicators and that you have to track everything. And for the first time, I thought, you know what, you're right. You have to think, what do you enjoy and what do you not enjoy? And I got to be honest, like I love numbers and I love those type of things, but I don't want to track my own stuff. And so I think that it's more important, especially for business owners, that they need to figure out what they enjoy and what they don't and contract out that other stuff, because finances in your business is essential. And if you don't do it right, you could be in serious trouble.
I mean, cash is king. Cash flow is king, right? It is. And it's so funny. And I talk about the delivery of the thing versus the management of the business. And the truth is, entrepreneurship is in the management of the business. Because if you just wanted to deliver the thing, if I just wanted to, do hair or, whatever, I could do that as an employee for someone else. And so really understanding all the management pieces of the business is what actually makes you an entrepreneur. And to your point, understanding what you're good at, what you want to do, a really good way to figure that out is what do you procrastinate on? Do you wait to the last minute to do your taxes? If so, then you should probably let someone else do it. But that doesn't necessarily preclude you from understanding it, right? Because that's how you really get into trouble.
Well, and you have to understand it, because if you just trust somebody else to do it all the time, that's how people get embezzled. That's how they get,
Yep. Billy Joel. I mean, the long list goes on and on of people who have allowed someone else to manage completely end to end and not know, and then kind of gotten taken. So for sure.
So let's talk about that then. When it comes to finances, like what are some good ways that you recommend tracking your finances?
Your personal or business?
Business,
yes. So business, there are really two great tools that I have used, and one of them I continue to use. One of them is QuickBooks, is the kind of standard, the basic standard. And then the other one is Wave Apps. WaveApps.com is a tool that I use to track my business expenses. And it's really great. First of all, the free version gives you a lot of functionality, but what's so great is it's easy. It's much easier to use than QuickBooks is in terms of tracking your transactions, running reports, all of those things. I find it to be a great starter tool for people before they potentially move to QuickBooks. And one of the things that I think people really get in trouble with is they don't know all the things that they can write off, all the expenses that benefit them in the end in terms of how they're spending their money on their business. And the biggest mistake I see people make is that they don't file taxes for their business in those first couple of years when all they're doing is losing money. And that's like the best benefit that you're going to get is when you're working in like your normal 9-to-5, trying to start a business and you're spending money on the business that you're not making a financial return on. In many ways, that financial return is going to be what you're able to write off in terms of expenses in those first early years. So
that's good information to know. I've never heard of that app, so I appreciate that. That's good.
Yeah.
So what are some other financial mistakes that business owners make that we should know about?
They don't understand basically the three statements. So your balance sheet, your cash flow, and your profit and loss statement. I'm not asking for most entrepreneurs to understand them at a CFO level, right? I think that there is a level that you as the owner of a small business should understand how those three statements interact or don't interact. And most importantly, what are those key pieces of information that you're looking at that should jump off the page at you and then kind of clue you in to dig in deeper, right? So if you're looking at your forecast on your cash flow, is your cash running out at a rapid rate? Do you see these big peaks and valleys? Is there seasonality in your business that you should take into account as you forecast? So just understanding what those three statements are and some basic ways to read them, I think is really important. There's a company called Bench Accounting. They've got a wonderful website. They've got an amazing YouTube channel, and they've got 4 videos about those statements that I think every entrepreneur should watch.
That's great. You need to make those videos. People watching you.
Well, I'm not an accountant, so but
right.
yeah, so right. I'm really. It's interesting, what's so funny is that in this kind of entrepreneur ecosystem, we tend to leapfrog people right into management of their business finances, instead of focusing on, do you know how to manage your personal finances first? Because there's a scientific link between those two things. If you are good at managing your personal finances, you tend to be good at managing your business finances because you're bringing those same habits along, right? But if you're avoidant over here, if you are, and it's really funny how I kind of got to this point is all of the entrepreneurs that I teach or consult and all that stuff almost universally had the same challenge. As long as we were talking about customer and product and brand, and they were all in, they were all excited. And then when we got to the money, when we got to the forecast, when we got to things that are really just addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division, really, it was like breaks. I mean, I've seen tears, people leaving programs. It's like, I mean, I've seen the gamut of reactions when it comes to finances. And I started to kind of wonder what was really going on as I asked them same questions. I'm not good at math, and this, that, and the other. Then I started asking them about their personal finances, and that's when things really started to come to light. Oh, so you're doing the same thing here that you're doing there. Makes complete sense. And then I went into the research and found that there's absolutely a scientific connection between those two things. So, yeah,
I love that, and because you talk about how really, if you're not doing very well personally, then the professional growth is just not even possible.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you're starting at negative, right? If you don't have a budget or a way to track your personal finances, if you don't even think in a way, it's not going to occur to you that that's something you should be doing in your business. And then when I hand you a business budget, it's completely foreign to you, right? I'm not just teaching you the business pieces, I'm teaching you the concept as a whole. And so where people are starting way behind. And I think if we start with personal, not only would they be able to better manage their business finances, but because of that, they will have stronger businesses. They're better able to make business decisions when they understand their finances.
I cannot agree more. And I think that we as entrepreneurs, sometimes we want to partner with people and like your best friend, or you want to partner with these people. And it wasn't until you just said this that I'm like, oh my gosh, why didn't I think about this? Because I partnered with a really good friend of mine. And here I was making, this was years ago, but making just over 6 figures, not a lot over. I had 6 kids, had a whole house, and I was supporting my family. And then there was this other person, my friend, who it was her and her husband. She was making over 150,000. That was her base plus commission. And she couldn't pay a $600 car repair bill. She asked me for the money. And this was multiple times. So we go into business. It's no wonder that the business was.
You had all the red flags.
I know. And well, I knew it to begin with, right? And I won't even tell you how much I lost. But, I think that people don't think about that how you behave personally will be brought into your professional, whatever it may be, especially.
You don't know anything different. You don't know anything different. So, right. Yep.
Because I remember having a conversation. First of all, I said, well, you need to take your pay cut. She refused. And I said, stop spending so much money on snacks for the employees. She's like, well, this is great morale. You don't have that money. Well, it's and so, deeply in debt. And then the company, no wonder it flopped.
Yep. Yeah. So, my mission really is to just help folks build strong small businesses. And now I'm starting to weave in this personal finance piece that's so important. Like I said, it's almost universal in every person I've ever helped. So
I love that you talk about that. Listeners, listen up about that. That's it really is important. All right.
Yeah.
So how can we gain financial or balance financial independence with family demands? Because if, like, let's talk about personal finances now.
Yeah. So I think one of the first steps, regardless of if, family demands or whatever, one of the first steps is understanding your mindset around money. What you'll find is a lot of folks who teach money or teach budgeting, they just kind of, here's the template, go forth. Right? I'll
Yeah.
teach you what all the columns are, and then good luck to you. And I have tested some of my processes, and in one instance, I actually did just that. I sat down with an entrepreneur, and we pulled up the template. I said, okay, let's fill out this budget, and we're going to look at your historic finances for the past 6 months. Within 15 minutes, she was in tears because of the shame, because she didn't want to seem like she was something that she wasn't, right? So everyone had an impression of her being kind of put together and all of these things, and we'll come to find out she didn't like, not only did she not know what she was spending her money on, but when she did find out in those very few minutes, she didn't like what she was spending her money on. And so that's where we have to start. We have to start with a mindset, some mindset exercises that help people understand why they spend and save and invest the way they do. And it's not just you just came out and that's what it is. It's years of conditioning, it's years of messaging, it's lack of education right around it. I am in my 50s, and I remember we had home ec, and we learned how to do a budget. And we also learned how to cook, and then we also had a mock wedding, but that's a different time. So, but we at least learned how to do that. That's nothing. None of that is happening anymore. And so just understanding why you think about money the way you think, even if it's something like money doesn't grow on trees. If you heard your mom or your dad say that over and over again, it creates something inside of you, positive or negative, right? So really starting there. And then when you talk about managing that along with other demands, whether it be family or whatever, creating a routine around money management and making it part of your normal conversation is really helpful. We don't talk enough about money. We don't talk enough about how it works in the grand kind of macro sense, or in our households. We just don't talk about it enough. And we also don't have these kind of systems around every month I'm going to do this, every week I'm going to do this, and just making it just part of, like you wash the dishes after you eat and after you cook, just making it part of your normal life. Yep.
I really think that's important. There was a time where I was the biggest penny pincher ever, to the point like I babysat all through high school, and so I had enough money for college because of babysitting.
That's awesome.
And a paper route. And so I was really, really frugal with money for a long time. And then all of a sudden something switched. I don't know if it's some people who've listened to my podcast before kind of know the story of being like 400,000 in the hole from a brother and a best friend. And all of a sudden, like, I was able to make the money back and then have extra money. And so my whole entire lifestyle has changed. And I think sometimes it's like, okay, well, let me be more, I'm not as frugal. Like I'll just spend. And I'm realizing that I could have a lot more money in the bank. And let's talk about the future, which I used to care about rather than now. And I think that sometimes if you don't have the foundation set, when you do have a lot more money, when you do make more money, I mean, there's a reason why people who win the lottery end up bankrupt, because
it's called lifestyle creep.
Yeah, they never had those skills in the beginning. And so is that what you help people with then?
Yeah, it's funny because the truth is, lifestyle creep is real, and it's okay to a degree. Meaning, if you make more money, I mean, you probably should spend more money, right? You should to some degree be, take advantage and get some of the fruits of that labor, right? But if you have a process or a system that says 50% of my money goes towards my necessities, 30% goes towards my wants, and then the remaining 20% goes towards saving and investing, no matter what, the more you make, that pie still stays the same, right? And so you can still spend more on your wants, spend more on your needs, and save more as you make more. But that's not typically exactly what happens. Is people make more money and they buy more of what they want, right? Instead of understanding that there's a pie there, and I should continue to spend in accordance to that.
That's brilliant. Because you think Warren Buffett, you hear the stories. Now, I have not personally vetted this, so people just, you can go let me know and make comments in the show notes. But he's lived in like the same house.
Mm-hmm.
He drives the same beater car. And like to him, that's not important. Or you have, who was it? Rockefeller. I was reading something again. It was on Facebook. So whether it's true or not, I don't know. But he was at 53. He had more money, like $385 billion equivalent to today's dollars at 53 years old. And he was told he was going to die because something was going on. They couldn't figure it out. So he kind of just started giving his money away because he knew he was going to die. And he lived until he was 98 years old. And what he realized is when you spend frivolously, or when you're just like so selfish with things and you have no plan, it's not as healthy as if you give and if you are aware of things. And so if you do have a structure, a system in place, like you talked about, 50%, 30%, 20%, 5, whatever, 10%, it really does help you, and it sets you up for future success.
Yep. And so kind of the next biggest thing that even comes before you start with that plan, that 50-30-20 plan, is understanding your core values.
Right.
So you can create a plan, right, that is in accordance to that. And so let me give you an example. If you're working through the Next Fem program and you determine what your core values are. Remember, I talked about that example where the woman, we unveiled her expenses and she not only didn't know what she was spending, but when she found out she didn't like it, it's because she was spending in ways that were not in alignment with who she thought she was. Right. And so when you understand what your core values are, then you can create a plan that allows you to spend in that 30%, that wants area, as much as you want on the things that matter to you. And you're able to say no. And this is true not only in money, but this is in life. This is in relationships, whatever. If you understand who you are at your core, then you've got boundaries and it's easy to say no. So if I say that one of my core values is family experiences, yet I then spend my money on the next Louis Vuitton bag, and all of my wants money is now gone, that doesn't quite add up, right? But if I didn't know what my values are, I'm just going to spend on the next shiny thing that my neighbor has or what I saw on Instagram or whatever it may be.
That is fantastic. And how many of us really take the time? Because we think, oh, it's going to take too much time, I don't want to do it. And I think it doesn't. It actually saves you time in the end.
Yeah.
Because
it does. Yeah, it does. Yep.
It forces you to plan.
And just like any plan, a lot of the work is in the beginning, right? A lot of the work is in the and with this money thing, particularly with the mindset work, a lot of the work in the beginning is hard and painful, and it takes some time to understand really who you are. But once that's done, and once the template is done and the plan is done, then it only has to change when something significant changes, right? And if you're an entrepreneur and you start to make a lot more money, or you get a raise, or maybe you get demoted, that's really the only time you really have to go back and say, okay, my plan has to change. But you're right, it saves you so much time in the back end.
I like that. So what other tips do you have for us? Or what other, from your experience, what other things do we need to know?
About money? So, one of the things I have is a wealth wellness quiz, and it takes you through everything from how you save, how you invest, your network. And what's interesting is it's 100% is the highest, and the average score is 30%. And 2 of those answers are actually gimme, so you can't get less than 20%. And so the one thing I really want people to know from that is that they are not alone. If we can get rid of the shame around how you have managed your money in the past, I think people can move forward quicker in terms of being better at doing that, right? So whether you filed bankruptcy or you've made some bad investments or what, like we've all done it. And my best example is when I started college the first time in 1991, and I sorry, 1989. Well, I think I'm younger than I am. In 1989, and I was given all of these applications for credit cards, right, as a freshman. And I promptly applied for them all because in my mind that was free money because I didn't know, no one talked to me about it. So, how many freshmen around the country have done that exact same thing?
Yeah.
Right. And racked up, before you knew it, $5,000 worth of credit card debt and then to spare. Right. I think if we talked about it more, we would all understand that we're not alone. Also understanding that there's a network that you can build around this topic, a network of people who are in the same boat as you, a network of people who are a little bit further along, right? So that you can learn and you sort of have mentors that are both peers and those that are ahead of you, to understand and to keep motivated, right? So how do I create a network of people that keep me motivated around this topic, and continue to learn, right? It's more than just saving and spending. There's so many other pieces to the puzzle.
I love that. My daughter, she was a little older than a freshman in college, but she got her credit card because I add my kids to my credit cards so that they can start building,
Exactly.
when they're older. And so, just an authorized user, but we sit down and we go through stuff, right? Well, she gets her own and she's like, Mom, I just don't understand how I owe so much. So I said, okay, well, let's look at this. And she goes, okay. So I said, you spent this much last month. I go, how much did you pay? She goes, well, I paid the minimum monthly payment. I said, okay. And then how much more did you spend this month? Well, this much. Okay. And how much did you pay the minimum monthly payment? I'm like, okay, your balance is adding and adding. You're never going to pay off your credit card in decades, right? And they even show that on their credit card. She's like, oh my gosh, I never knew that. I said, yeah, you can't spend more than you pay off. It doesn't, there has to be an equal. And she's like, oh my gosh, I didn't know. And so I think that we as people do need to do a better job understanding money. And I think also, what's your opinion of this? Because I have been in a Grant Cardone world for a little while, right? And I'm learning some things from him. And if you would have asked me a couple of years ago, I would have said absolutely not, like no, right? But he goes, every single day I look at my bank account and I move it to zero. And then I just invest and I invest and I invest. And I'm like, well, what about the rainy day? Because we're all taught about that, right? Have a rainy day. You need to have all these different things. Don't be in debt. And so it's really different thought processes. But I think I first of all want to know your opinion of that. But the second question is our relationship with money. Like, how many of us grew up with parents saying, oh, I can't afford that? Or how many of us actually say that to our kids? Oh, we can't afford that. Or that's just too expensive. And so I want to hear your opinion of what you recommend, and then we'll get to the other part in a second.
Yeah. So I think, so the first one, in terms of moving, like having your account go to zero, I don't think I could do that. But here's what I recommend. And because I work with entrepreneurs, the money's like this. It's not like we're getting, W-2 paychecks every 2 weeks and we know exactly how much we're going to get paid. So I recommend, if we think about kind of the order of how your money should go, is before you think about paying off any debt whatsoever, you should create an emergency fund that's between 3 and 6 months of your living expenses. And here's the reason why. A lot of people will start paying down debt first, and then something will happen, and then they charge it on the card, and then you're back to zero. And not only that, you charge it on the card, and you're paying, in some cases, 28% interest on that money, and you don't have it because if you had it, you would have just paid it off, right? And so if you've got this emergency fund, it's 3 to 6 months worth of your expenses. If something happens, that's where you go first. You go to the cash first, right? And you leave your debt alone. And then from there, then you have in your primary checking account, you're going to have between 1.5 to 2 months of living expenses. And that's because, again, your money is like this as entrepreneurs often. And what we don't want to do is potentially set up all these automatic transactions and withdrawals from a checking account and then get in trouble during a down month in our business, right? So that's the first thing. And then from there, we start paying down debt and then we start investing, right? And knowing that not all debt is created equal, right? So understanding what the interest rate is on your debts is going to help you potentially understand how to pay it off. And if it's and ultimately free money based on interest rates or return on investment and all that stuff. So,
Yeah.
And then the second question was
your relationship. Like, should we really teach our kids to say, oh, we can't afford that? Or do we teach our kids to say, what do we need to do to be able to buy that?
Yeah, I think both. And I think it's okay to tell your kids you can't afford it. And I also think it's okay to tell them why. And then to your point, explain, what needs to be different, for us to be able to afford that. I also think it's important at a young age to give your kids an allowance, no matter how small it is, and teach them that it's a finite resource. And if you're going to spend, you're going to take your piggy bank to Target or whatever, and you're going to buy what you want, but guess what? You can't buy everything you want. You can't buy this big thing because you can't afford it. You don't have enough money in your piggy bank. And so I think that, what we kind of neglect or forget is that kids are smarter than we give them credit for, right? My 4-year-old granddaughter gets this concept of money and that I have to exchange it for things that we want. And she also understands that it's not, an infinite resource. So, yeah.
I like that. Okay, so time is short. So I would just want to ask you that, imagine yourself starting out at the very beginning. Go back to your time when you were a freshman in college. And obviously, you know everything because we as college people, or we thought we knew. We were
Couldn't tell me anything.
Exactly. But say that you could. What advice would you give yourself, knowing what you know now?
Knowing what I know now, I would have told myself to start investing early. Even if it's $20 a month, to just start putting something away in. And I think about how much money I could have if I had just started putting away $100 when I was 18 years old a month, right? It's pretty powerful. And also, on nextfemfinancial.com, I've got some calculators that help people understand just that. If you start putting away $100 for 20 years, how much that money could grow. That's the first thing that I would say. And then the second thing, again, I kind of keep saying this, but your money problems are not unique, and it's okay to be vulnerable about it. It's okay to talk to people about it, and it's okay to ask questions. And it's more important now than ever because there's so much bad information on the internet, on TikTok and Instagram. There's so much bad and just wrong information about money that it's more important than ever that we really talk about it. I
like that. Thank you so much. If our listeners wanted to find you, how would they get a hold of you?
Well, the good thing is that I'm the only Juana Whitmore on the planet. So if you put my name in Google, you can connect. You can connect with me on LinkedIn. That's probably the quickest way. Or you can contact me through my website, nextfemfinancial.com or LajuanaWhitmore.com for my two businesses.
Thank you so much for coming on. Money is the topic that people never want to talk about, but it's the topic that they absolutely always should be talking about.
And I think what I've found is that once you start talking about it and you can't stop. It becomes a fascination. So, yeah.
Absolutely. And there's so many more ways that you can, when you talk about investing, there's so many options you can do. So
yes, for sure.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being on our show.
Thank you for having me. It was fun.
And Unbreakable Moms, please start, if you're not doing it now, make yourself a budget. You got to get a relationship that's a healthy relationship with money, especially starting out. You definitely need to make sure that you know where your money is being spent, because otherwise it's very easy to all of a sudden go, where did it all go? Speaking from personal experience. So I really hope that you take advice, reach out to Juana, and make it a fantastic day. Beautiful moms, remember, you are unbreakable. Keep illuminating the world with your strength, pursuing your dreams, and reveling in the splendor of motherhood. This is Charisse Walker, bidding you farewell for now. Stay tuned for more empowering conversations on the next episode of the Unbreakable Mompreneurs podcast. Until then, keep shining bright. Signing off with love, Charisse Walker.